Okay, I want to tell you a little bit about my trip to Colombia um, and to Florida. So last week I was on a break. A week before last, I was on spring break from my job. I had a week off, and it also coincided with my birthday. So I decided, kind of last minute, I couldn't decide where I wanted to go. I usually travel for my birthday, and I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. So I decided to, at the kind of like a week before, I was like, oh, I know what I want. I want to go to some tropical water. I want to, tropical environment, hot. And it was still cold here in America, even though it was springtime, it hadn't gotten warm. And I just wanted like some hot water. I had gone to Puerto Rico this past summer, and the one thing that stood out to me was that the water was hot. Like the water was warm, like bath water, and that was so nice. It wasn't just the clearness and the beauty, but swimming in warm water like a bath water was just nice. So I decided that's what I wanted. So I look on Spirit, and I have points with Spirit, and I found a flight that I could pay for with points, and it would cost me, because sometimes when you use points you still have to pay cash, and so the flight was going to cost me $96, which I thought, okay, that's fine. I found a place to stay on booking.com, and I booked a hotel that served breakfast. I always choose hotels that serve breakfast in the walled city. So I was going to Cartagena. So the only thing about this flight and trip was that it was literally a 3-day trip, which is really short to go to another country. But also, it involved me leaving DC at 9 p.m., arriving in Florida at midnight, and having to sleep in the airport or, layover in the airport until like 8 a.m. And so that was blowing me, but I could not find a flight. I looked for other airlines that might be like leaving that night to Colombia, so I don't have to stay there all night. And I couldn't find anything. And again, I was working, and this was a last minute trip. I didn't have a lot of time to look, but I could not find any other airline that I could avoid these layovers. So this is going to get me to Colombia at noon on, let's say, a Monday. And then I have all day Tuesday, and then Wednesday I'm leaving at around noon or 1 o'clock. So I was a little nervous about, like, you literally have one full day and 2 half days. Is it worth it? And it was. I had a wonderful time. So I got there. Yes, I found a place to sleep in the airport that, in the airport, when you have to sleep in the airport, which I've had to do many times, usually they have those chairs and they have the armrests, and so there's nowhere to lay out. Some airports, I noticed in Iceland, is it Iceland? Yeah. In Iceland, they would have like some areas where there were no bars and you can just lay out. And in Fort Lauderdale, I couldn't really find a place like that. But they have like a little library, right? They have this little area that's called the library, and they have these seats, and there's no bars. So I went there and went to sleep. Got on the plane to Colombia, met a friend who was sitting. We didn't have a middle seat. We didn't have a person sitting in the middle, thank God. He was sitting on the aisle. I was at the window. So we talked a little bit. He had been to Colombia 5 times. He was really cool. So first thing is, I totally forgot that you have to do these immigration papers. So if you're planning to go to Colombia, just remember that you have to complete this immigration form before you get out the airport. And everyone around me, my friend on the flight and this other couple that we met that were standing behind us, they all had their forms filled out. I completely forgot. Remember, I made this trip at the last minute. So I did was able to fill out the form while I was in the line, but it wasn't as simple as you would think, because you go to, I think it's called Colombia MIG.com or .org. But let me just tell you that because I was rushing and I was like, oh God, and I went to the site. There's another site that says, you know, it looks official, but when you get to the end, they charge you like $35. Well, it's not supposed to be a fee. Thank God there was a woman there. She was Hispanic. I don't know if she was Colombian, but she was like, no, go to this one. So it's something like colombiamig.com, and then there's maybe a colombiamig.org. Honestly, I can't remember right now. I think it's the .org, but it's the one that doesn't charge you, that you need. So I'm glad those people were there. You know, that was like the first blessing. Well, the first blessing was that I did have a window seat, and that I love to have a window seat, and I didn't have anyone in the middle. But then secondly, that these people were helpful, and I was able to get that form filled out by the time I got to the front of the line. It took a minute though, because you have to put in your passport number and, you know, all these things. So anyway, I got that done, got out. I was so happy. I was just like talking to my cab driver, like, oh my God, I love it here. Yo soy feliz. I was so happy. South America felt like a warm hug. And I was like, why is South America giving me this? Meaning, I've been to El Salvador, Guatemala, Costa Rica. Those are all in Central America. But I honestly recall feeling like it's something about this South America. It's different. I could be wrong, but it just felt different. And maybe because it's so hot, you know. But I just was happy. I was so excited. And the trip went by perfectly. The 2 days total, I had 2 half days and 1 full day. That worked out well. It was like a little kiss, like a little sweet little trip. I had a good time, and it went by quickly, but not too quickly. Like I had worries, like, oh my God, am I going to feel like a total idiot for coming over here for a day? No, I had plenty of time. My first day, I got there. I was staying at a hotel called Villa Alta. And it was cute enough. It's in the walled city. Location was great. There's like a little square. Anybody that's been to Cartagena, you've probably seen there's this statue of this big kind of overweight woman that's naked and she's laying on her side. We were right by that. I could see that from my hotel balcony. I also had a balcony, which was nice. But I found out later when I was reading the reviews that everyone who gets a room there does not get a balcony. So they kind of advertise it like you get a balcony, but turns out I just got lucky that I had the room with the balcony. The room was weird. It was dark, and the air, like when you walked in the front of the building, it was hot. So remember, Colombia is very hot. So I'm hot, you know, I'm in the taxi. I guess he had on the air, but I get out of the taxi. I have bags. It's hot. I walk into the entryway and it's hot there. You know, you think the closed glass door, you think when you open the door, you're going to walk into air because you're from United States where air is blowing and hard. It was cold. It was hot when I got into the entryway. I'm like, I got these bags. I'm hot. I'm ready to drop everything. And so she put on a fan and she checked me in. And I was like, oh my God, because I've learned my lesson. I made a mistake of staying in an unair conditioned place in Madrid when it was like 100 degrees. It was miserable. And it really affected my trip. So I was like, I know I didn't choose a hotel with no air. Like, what the hell? But they had air upstairs. So you walk in the entryway and there's nothing but like a stand for the reservationist. And then there's some steps. So I'm like, okay, right. No elevator, walk up the steps. It's fine. I'm a traveler, so I'm used to this. But a lot of people, if you're from America, you're going to be taken aback by the fact that you don't have air, you don't have elevators, and oftentimes you don't have a washcloth, and you also could very possibly not have hot water in countries such as this. I even brought my washcloth. The first time that I actually brought a washcloth, because I was staying such a short time that I was like, my bag wasn't super packed because, I'm carry-on only. So my bag is usually tight. But my bag wasn't super tight this time. And so I brought a washcloth, and this was, I didn't need it. They actually had one. So I go in there and I really want to just lay down and finish watching my shows for real. But I know that I only have 3 days. So I took a beat and then I went out. I go out and just kind of start walking around. Remember, I've been there before, just 2 years prior, like a year and a half prior. So I kind of know what's up. So I walk around and I walk straight into some Colombianas. They're dancing. So that happens a lot. I had seen that before. They were setting up. They had some drums. They had, some dancers. They were changing into their outfits. And I just kind of sat down. They were in a park. So I sat down in the park. I needed some water because remember, it's hot. You just want water all the time. The hotel, like I said, it was a little weird but nice. Like, it was a duplex. It had 2 floors. The bed was up on the 2nd floor. And when you walk into the front area, the reason I say it's weird is it was so dark. Like, they had lights on, but they were like mood lights. So it's very dark. Like, you can't see. It's dark. It's weird. And that's the only thing. And they did have some drinks in the refrigerator, but nothing just looked like a regular bottle of water, right? They did have some kind of bottled water, but, I don't want to pay $5. You know how hotel drinks cost. And then open it and it's sparkling water or something. So while I'm at this park, the water seller I'm sat right next to him. So he's like, do you want a water? He's a vendor. I was like, yeah, I don't have any cash yet. Like, I just got here. I don't have any money. I had American money. And he gave me the water. So that was also like a nice little start to my trip that he was giving. He was nice. Nothing against Colombians. I just was like, I expected he wants his money and that's it. Not that he's going to give me some water. So I was like, oh, he's really nice. Again, nothing against Colombians. I just didn't expect that. I always felt like everybody's on their grind. They're not giving stuff away. So that seemed very nice. I drank the water. I watched the dancers. One thing I noticed, because if you're an American and you travel abroad a lot, you may notice how Americans act overseas. And it can be embarrassing. Like, I remember being in Istanbul and we were going into this palace. I think you had to like take off your shoes, or it was something that you had to do just as custom and culture there. And I can't remember specifically. This is like 15 years ago. But I remember that the Americans like totally disregarded the rules. Like, they were just kind of like entitled, and just how we act abroad. Like, walked in the place with their shoes on, just ignoring the Turkish people who are asking them not to. We can be embarrassing. So, so I forgot why I was saying that. But, I was saying that because in the park, so I'm sitting down, and there's benches all around the park, and the dancers and the drummers are like in the middle of the park. They're set up. They have a whole band. They have a flautist. I think they had a clarinetist. The drums, they were about their business. They're about to perform. So if you've been to Colombia, at some point they perform, and then at some point there's a girl that walks around like with a hat asking you to put money in the hat. I just told you I had no money. I had American money, and I couldn't remember. Like, some countries, they'll take American just like they'll take their pesos. But I couldn't remember what the deal was with this country. Because I think in El Salvador, they take American money. I couldn't remember if Colombia was like that. So when they came around, I didn't have money to put into the hat. Well, I mean, it's not a big deal. Someone else is going to do it. I just don't like to be that person. I sat here, I watched, I took videos. I'm going to be posting videos. So the least I could do is give them a couple of dollars. They're like dancing for their life out there. They're dancing hard. But the reason I bring this up is because there were some, I thought they were American, but you don't know. But they were white. They definitely weren't Colombian. And they're sitting next to me, and a part of me thought, the one thing I know, and they were a family. It was like a father and a couple of kids and a mother. So I was like, they have some money to put in this hat. They know to give these people a little money. They've been sitting here watching. And I only bring this up because they were given that obnoxious American vibe. They were walking in front of my camera, They just like didn't care. They were like walking in front of your camera, like everyone's sitting on the bench watching these young people dance and play their music. And they just were like walking and just rude. And then when the hat came around, they didn't put any money in the hat either. I was surprised by that. Because I almost felt like, I don't feel a solidarity with Americans when I'm abroad. But in that case, I think because I was thinking, damn, I don't have nothing to give these people. But I was like, my homeboys here, they're going to do it. They know. We're American. We know. We got a couple of dollars. We're not rich like people think we are, a lot of us. But we could give a couple of dollars. And I was surprised by not just them, but the number of people who just let this girl walk around with her hat and ignored her. Anyway, I sat there for a while, realized I'm going to need pesos while I'm here. So I kind of caught my breath. I had only walked a couple of blocks from the hotel. So I kind of caught my breath, while sitting there being entertained. I was so happy. Like, this is just like perfect. Like, wow, I just walked out and a band is setting up. And now I get to be entertained. I got some free water. This is great. So part of the reason I chose Colombia is I had bought these little coin purses. It's not a big deal, but they're leather. They're pretty nice. You open it up and you put your little cash in it. And I bought like 5 when I was there the last time. They probably cost $3 or $4. They didn't cost much for them to be leather. So I bought like 5. So part of me going back was, how you get home and you appreciate something better. I was like, I'm going back. I have money to spend. It's my birthday. I'm going to buy like 10 of these. I'm going to buy a bunch of these. A couple other things I had bought that were really cheap. So I'm like, let me go get my cash. And while I'm out, I'll go to the store where I got these. There wasn't only one store that sold them. Like at most countries, they have these souvenirs, and they sell them everywhere. It's the same thing. Again, what I teach my children when they travel with me, never buy it like right away, because in the tourist areas, they're probably going to be more expensive. When you go to a more rural area, they'll have the same thing and it'll be $2 or $3 less. So I I wanted to, I forgot why I was saying that, but I went and got my cash. So I go to the ATM. At the ATM, there's like 3 or 4 people in uniform. They look like construction workers. They had on like orange, like that bright orange kind of uniform thing. And they're just at the ATM. One is laying down, relaxing. One's sitting in a chair. They didn't acknowledge me. I felt, because they were there at the bank, I didn't feel unsafe at all. It's middle of the day. So I thought, oh, Colombia must have some people here to protect tourists, to make sure nothing funky goes down at the ATM, which may have been true. But when I got there and I couldn't yet figure out how to get it to English, because most of the time you go to the bank, you click on your flag, and then they'll have a Spanish flag, an English flag, a French flag. You click on your flag to get your language. Well, I couldn't see that at first, so I was kind of just speaking aloud, like, "Oh wow, I can't read this." And those guys they were men. It was all men, I think, like at least 5 of them. They didn't say like, "Oh, just push this." They weren't helpful. And that made me think, well, maybe they're not working for Colombia. Maybe they're just chilling out here. They seemed completely uninterested in me and me getting my money. I didn't expect them to help me, but I just thought, well, if they're workers for the country, they might just say, "Oh, ma'am, just push this or just do this." Well, they didn't. But the transaction was fine. I was somewhat on alert because, I'm getting cash and I'm an American and I'm a tourist and they know that. So I was somewhat on alert. Like, I'm pulling out my card. I'm getting a stack of cash. I think I got like $80. Because you don't want to get too much. I definitely came home with quite a few pesos. You don't want to get too much because then you're forced to spend it and, whatever. So I got the cash and I just started wandering. I went to the store to get my little thing. And you know what? They don't sell them anymore. I just went in 2023, like September, I think, of 2023. And I returned in April of 2025. They don't sell these anymore. They sell they sell these, but it has all cloth now, like this colorful cloth. It looks cheesy, and it's like just a little leather in the back. So they've gotten cheaper. So I didn't buy any. I'm holding on to this one. I probably have one left. So that was a disappointment because I was excited about that. One, I have room in my bag to bring some stuff back. And I know that their prices are super cheap. So I was it's something small. That's really small. I would have bought 10, brought them home and thrown them in my, dresser. And, it wasn't a huge deal, but I was shocked to find that nobody had them. I was asking like, "Hey, do you guys have this?" Nobody had them. They've changed them. They're now made of cloth. So they've come to understand leather is expensive and they're not making them anymore. So I get to wandering around again. I'm like, "Oh my God, I remember this. I remember that." It's like certain places I wanted to see. And I'm just wandering and I end up right back at the square where I started with the dancers by chance. I wasn't trying to go back there. So I end up back there. Do you know the dancers are still dancing? They're so loud. They were dancing for hours. The sun is now about to go down. They were still dancing. I found the water guy was there, so I paid him for my water, which, it's not a big deal. Part of me is like, you gave it to me. I don't gotta pay you, but What is it, $1.50? So, I gave him my pesos. And then he got me a coffee, which was cute. I forgot, Colombian coffee is so good. And they will have the guys that sell like these little, like the little red cups, solo cups. They sell like little cups of coffee for a couple of dollars, which I thought was expensive in Colombia. Like $2? Is this guy getting over on me? The water guy. But again, who cares? It's $2. And it's a good cup of coffee, because their coffee's good. You don't get milk and cream. I think it comes with sugar, so it's just a little sweet shot of coffee. So I did that. I watched the dancers a little bit more. I'm kind of chilling out, listen to my music, take a video. Very aware that, my iPhone is like this expensive object. But I not only have my iPhone, I also have my iPad. The reason I carry my iPad is because I'm a musician. I love music. I listen to music all the time. I'm a solo traveler. So I'm in my zone. I'm feeling good. I've got, some hip hop or something in my ear, some reggae. And I'm just walking around, but I'm videoing a lot and I'm taking pictures. So I use the iPad to listen to my music so that I don't run my battery completely down listening to music and taking pictures. And obviously you can't take a video and listen to music at the same time. So no, I don't have my iPad out. It's in my backpack. But I'm very aware that in certain countries, I have my AirPods, I have a phone, I have an Apple Watch, but I didn't take it. I've got an iPad, brand new iPad in my backpack. So I watch the goings on. I'm content. I've wandered around. I've had a good time. I'm like, I'm a little tired. I'm gonna go back to the room. Maybe refresh and come back out later, or maybe I'll end up just staying. I go to my hotel, okay? The lady that worked there was not that smart. She just was not that smart. She didn't speak much English, but she just wasn't that bright. Like, she acted like she was new on the job. So she had given me a code to the front door. You push the code and I think the pound sign, the door is supposed to open. I go back to my door. It doesn't open. I try it again. Doesn't open. Try it again. I tried 2 or 3 times, 3 or 4 times. It's not opening. At some point, the woman's speaking in Spanish. You know how they say, like, account has been disabled. Lock has been disabled. You've tried too many times. It was something like that, but it was in Spanish. So now I don't know what I violated. Like, you know how you try a passcode, you say you got one more time, we're going to lock it. But I can't understand it. And I do understand some Spanish, but I probably had on my AirPods, listening to music still, didn't know that the lock was going to start talking. So I missed what they said. So now I'm like, oh my God, it's getting dark. I'm tired. At least it's not burning hot anymore. I've got a bag and a purse. I'm not weighed down, but I'm in front of my hotel. I want to get upstairs. I want a bed, So I text. They of course, like everyone overseas, they use WhatsApp. So I WhatsApped her and said, hey, the number's not working. And she kind of repeats, this is the number. Like, bitch, I know, but it's not working. All right, I'm getting mad, right? So I wasn't mad. So I shouldn't start cursing, but I wasn't mad, but I was agitated. So I was like, okay, all right. I'm locked out. Maybe I'll go get something to eat. Because at this point, have I eaten at all? No. I got in Fort Lauderdale, they have a little Cuban stop cassava, something. I always go there. And they have empanadas. They're like $3. They have spinach empanadas. And I bought two. So I ate one at the airport, and I had like one that I carried on the plane with me. I think I ate the second one on the plane. That's like all I had to eat all day. So I was like, maybe I'll go have a nice meal since I'm locked out anyway. Did I want to get back to the room? Yes. Was I running out of charge and all of that kind of stuff? Sure. Of course, I always carry a portable charger. I thought I had it with me. I always have my portable charger. That's a must. It took me a good year or two of traveling before I realized, because I have had travel where I'm missing fantastic pictures, or I may not be able to get the directions back to my hotel because the phone is dying, and then I have to try to go in some shop and find a plug somewhere. That's for the birds. So if you are traveling or considering traveling more, step one is to get one of those power pack portable chargers. I bought mine at Target. It's made by Belkin. It's pretty big. It's like a big block, but it keeps you charged. It'll charge you up. It'll charge up your phone, charge up your iPad. So now I'm stranded. It took the hotel a good hour to respond because I texted them and then I just walked away. I'm like, I'm not going to get in. There's no one at the door. So let me just go find somewhere to go, get something to eat. So I kind of walked around, checked the restaurants near me. And that's another thing about traveling that people don't talk about a lot, but it's a real problem. If you don't speak the language and you're in a foreign country and you look at a menu and it's all in another language, we probably don't know like escargot in Spanish, or that's a French word, but you know what I mean? Like certain things, squid, a lot of things you're not going to know. And yes, I know huevos, I know eggs, I know jamon, I know ham, but there's a lot of words you're not going to know when it comes to food words, or at least I don't know. So I was in a position of one, going to a restaurant that's clearly for tourists. Then you got to deal with the grabbiness, right? Because the restaurants will have people, workers, stand outside on the sidewalk like, hey, you want to come in? And then you got to deal with all the interaction. You barely speak the language. You're like, no, I'm just deciding. How do I say deciding in Spanish? It's just a lot. So sometimes these are the things people don't talk about, but sometimes these are the moments that you have that make the travel more difficult, right? You think you're like, I'm great, I'm having a great time, it's cute, but I want to eat and I can't figure out this menu. And again, it's geared, any restaurant geared toward tourists, I don't want those restaurants. The prices are going to be jacked up. They're going to be doing too much. I just want like the hole in the wall with the good food, right? And I'm in a tourist area. I'm staying in the walled city. So I walked around, didn't really see a restaurant that appealed. Like I say, it was two by the hotel, but they were like really shishi and fancy. And I was like, I don't want all that. A part of me did. A part of me wanted a real nice sit down, good service meal. But I didn't see a place worth going to. So I went back to that park. The band was packing up. I didn't sit in the middle part. I sat over on the edge. And I'm bringing that up because there was this bench and it was in the corner. So if you imagine the park is like a square, right? And then around the park, there's like another square and there's benches. So for the most of the time that I was there, I was sitting close to the dancers, right? But this time I'm like, I'm done with the dancers. Like, I don't want to sit there anymore. So I went over to this bench just to kind of privately, there was no one there. It was kind of dark. it was getting dark, and I'm at the corner. So the whatever building was in front of me was like maybe like a historic building. So I'm sitting on the corner where there's no traffic, and it was getting dark, and I have my backpack, and I'm like pulling out my iPad and all of that. I say that because of the research I have done since, where's the sun? The research that I've done since I finished that trip. And I realized, I looked back and I thought, whoa, that was kind of dangerous. In retrospect, that was kind of dangerous to sit in that corner by myself with all my Apple products. And I'll get to that, but I just wanted to point that out because I'm sitting there and I remember thinking, if something did happen to me right here, right now, it's kind of on the hotel for not letting me in. Sorry. Trying to get out the shadow. It's kind of on them because now I've put myself in danger. I'm tired. I don't feel like walking around anymore. I want to go in the hotel and I'm locked out. So now I was safe. I sat there for a minute and then I was like, you know, even in your own city, this probably isn't smart to be sitting in this kind of dark corner as the night falls. So I got up, nothing happened, but I just point that out because I remember sitting there thinking, yeah, and if something happens, it's not technically the hotel's fault that I chose to put myself in danger, but I wouldn't be in that position if the door was open. Around this time, the lady texted. No, so then I left and I went to this place that